Hello. Using a simple paint and drawing program, in this case Sumo Paint 2.0, something that I just went online to get. Very easy, but you may not need to do that at all. You may just on your phone or your computer, you may very well already have a drawing program. Most of them do. The reason why I'm doing it here is just because it'll be straightforward and simple. I don't need to save the project. And then with the skills, I'm going to transfer those to my drawing paper and pencil to create the project that is part of your online packet. Okay, so starting out very quickly, we've got my toolbox over here of all the tools that I'm going to need. And then when I select a tool, so here I'm going to select the straight line and it's highlighted in blue. Then up here I've got some options for that line in terms of the tool. I've got 3 pixels that'll work. It's going to be an opaque, so not transparent. And then I'm going to use the narrow line, which is pretty much all I need. I'm going to start my 1-point perspective by drawing a line directly across the top of the page. And that becomes the horizon line. That's the line that separates the land from the sky. The next thing I want to do is I'll come up here and switch tools to the pencil. I've got 10 pixels now on the pencil tool and a round pencil, which will be just fine because I'm just going to draw a point on my horizon line, which is now the vanishing point. And what that means is all other subsequent lines are going to come from the front plane or the middle plane of my drawing and will become connected to the vanishing point. Now, that doesn't necessarily make sense and why we do that, but it will visually make sense quite quickly when I begin with my first 3-dimensional form. I'm going to start out with the rectangle tool, and I'm just going to simply draw a square, okay? It'll be black because that is what is selected down here at the bottom in terms of the fill on the shape. Now, the square, as we know, is a 2-dimensional shape, okay, which means that it has height and it has width, but it does not have depth because the depth on this shape has not been drawn. Once doing that, we'll have a 3-dimensional shape versus a 2-dimensional shape. Now, the 2-dimensional shape is called a square. The 3-dimensional shape is called, wait for it, that's right, it's called a cube. Okay, I'm going to use my line tool now, and I'm going to draw lines that connect the corner of my square, each of the corners, back to the vanishing point in the drawing. Like that. And on this third corner, we'll do the same. Like that. Okay, so now you can see why using a 1-point perspective, a 2-point perspective allows us to not only draw 3-dimensional forms, but additional shapes, 3-dimensional shapes, will diminish in scale as they move back into the picture plane. In other words, they will get smaller. This is how we create the illusion of space in a landscape on a 2-dimensional surface, like our drawing paper or our canvas. Now I'm going to come here with the line tool, and I'm going to go ahead and using a horizontal line, going and drawing the back of the box. As we know, horizontals are always going to be parallel to one another. Then I'm going to draw a vertical line that creates the side of this box, side of this cube, and the same rules apply. The vertical lines are all parallel to one another. Now I'm looking at this. I'm going to see if I can select it and see if I can actually move it. It's not allowing me to move it. So the Sumo Paint capabilities I'm not as familiar with, so I'm going to leave it. But I can see, rechecking it, that it's not exactly parallel as much as I would like it to be. I'm going to leave it for right now because my focus is just on the perspective concept. Okay, so there we have my first cube. Now, if I were to come back here and draw a second cube, but further back into space, and let me line it up back here. I will connect it just like that so that this corner is on that line and this corner is on that line. This corner is on that line, just the way it was in the beginning up here. Okay, so then I'm going to take my line tool and then go ahead and finish off that, hoping that it's horizontal and parallel to the other horizontals. Drawing a vertical tool and just cinching it in so that it's vertical and parallel with the other vertical lines in the drawing. Okay, so that's 1-point perspective. And not just cubes, but you can do it with cylinders and cones and other shapes in a drawing. That's how you create the illusion of space, by having your three-dimensional forms. In this case, the cubes would represent buildings. They would simply diminish in space, get smaller as they go back here towards the vanishing line. Okay, now if, for example, I were to place a three-dimensional shape above the horizon line, then instead of moving up in the picture plane towards the vanishing point, my lines then would move down towards the vanishing point, like that. And finishing the box off as best as I can. This one's going to be a little tricky right here because it is such a narrow space. I want to make sure my crosshairs are right where it needs to be. And I'm going to get that looking parallel as much as I can. So you see now how we have this cube that is floating above the horizon line, ostensibly in the air, in space. Whereas these cubes right here are grounded. They're sitting on the land, anchored there to the land below the horizon line. That's 1-point perspective.